Well, DW's chief international editor Richard Walker has been speaking with China's chargé d'affaires in Germany, Zhang Junhui, about his country's reaction to Nancy Pelosi's visit.
Mr. Zhang, thank you very much for speaking with Deutsche Welle. China's announced large military maneuvers around Taiwan in response to Nancy Pelosi's visit there. Can you please explain why China is so angry about this visit?
Before I answer your question, I want to point out what Ms. Pelosi has done with her visit to Taiwan. She has violated her own principle. She's violated the three communiques between China and the United States. This also undermined the political basis of our relations and undermined Chinese territorial integrity and sovereignty. And by doing so, she also endangered peace and security in the Taiwan Strait and the whole region. Her trip has sent a fatal, a wrong signal to the independence forces. You can understand the measures that we apply to stop these separatists, to defend our sovereignty, but also to dissuade the Americans from the wrong course.
But of course, Ms. Pelosi denies that she has violated those agreements. There is also a precedent. In 1997, Newt Gingrich was in Taiwan. There was not such a big reaction from Beijing back then. China reacted in a much more relaxed way. So why this big, quite aggressive action now?
You should first address that question to Ms. Pelosi about what consequences her trip had. Precedent is not an argument. It's not a reason for a mistake to be repeated. Recently, we have observed the growing independence movement. We have also observed increasing support from the Americans. So you can understand why we reacted so strongly to this visit.
But why react militarily? Why not just stay the diplomatic course?
You know, we have prepared militarily precisely against the increasing independence efforts. These are routine maneuvers that take place within our territorial waters. I also want to emphasize that in addition to these routine maneuvers, we will also take economic and political measures. You will see.
But Beijing could permanently defuse the situation by promising that China will never achieve unification with Taiwan by force. Why doesn't China make such a promise? That would permanently calm the situation.
We have said from the very beginning that we will put all our efforts towards a peaceful reunification. But the growing activity of the independence movement has made this impossible. We have to be prepared. We have to respond to this. As I said, reunification is the common desire and the common hope of the whole Chinese nation. The military actions, the maneuvers, were only directed against the independence activists, against that movement, not against the Chinese people on the island of Taiwan.
That's DW's international editor Richard Walker talking with China's chargé d'affaires in Berlin, Zhang Junhui. Well, joining us now is Valerie Tan. She's an analyst with the Mercator Institute for China Studies here in Berlin. Welcome to DW. You've written that the timing of Nancy Pelosi's trip to Taiwan is particularly sensitive to Xi Jinping and China's top leadership. Just explain to us why that is.
Well, this year is particularly sensitive for Xi Jinping because he is seeking a third term as the leader and the chief of Chinese Communist Party state, essentially. So the last thing he wants is to appear weak or undermined, not least by the United States. And it's beyond just this year. Going ahead to 2049, he has made reunification with Taiwan a historic mission and part of the greater goal of the greater rejuvenation of the Chinese nation. So for Pelosi's visit requires a strong Chinese response. If not, he will come across as weak.
Right. And so a lot of these belligerent pronouncements, that's been for domestic consumption?
Yes, to a certain extent. Two ways to look at it. First, on one hand, it is obviously to drive up nationalism and militaristic fervor. Obviously, the 1st of August, which was the founding anniversary of the People's Liberation Army, also played a huge factor here. So the mood is still quite high when it comes to nationalism and anything related to that, so particularly with Taiwan, which most Chinese in China do consider it as part of Chinese territory. But that said, though, there is definitely a silent majority within China who would be against the idea of a military invasion or a full-blown war over Taiwan.
Right. So, as ever with these things, it's complicated. So we had a relationship between the United States and China that was already fraught. Has this trip moved that in one way? Well, it certainly hasn't made it friendlier, has it? Has it actually made it worse?
Well, I'm not really a China-US relations expert, but I can definitely say one thing. With or without Pelosi's visit, relations between China and Taiwan have already hit a historic low. So obviously, her trip to Taiwan does little to improve or repair cross-strait relations. But that said, it really sets the stage for how bilateral relations between China and Taiwan are going to proceed from now onwards. We're going to see more militarization. We're going to see an increase in intensity and frequency of economic coercion. Increasingly, that will be the norm for how Beijing treats Taiwan. The question right now is, can it get any worse? For now, what we've seen is China is also quite careful not to overstep its show of anger, as it will also have to bear some, if not most of the consequences, if a full-blown military conflict does happen.
Taiwan's independence movement seems to be quite a concern for China. Is it really strong there? What are they doing?
I think what we've seen in this visit is within Taiwan's leadership, they have been careful to play down the visit. And if you have followed what Tsai Ing-wen said during her speech this morning in the joint press conference that she held with Nancy Pelosi, the word independence or declaration of independence was not really openly put across because they know that would signal or that would be a clear indication for China to really take action. Instead, the visit and what Tsai Ing-wen said and top Taiwanese leadership have been going around using this narrative of protecting their system, protecting sovereignty, and it's run on this values-based idea of freedom, democracy, human rights. So those are the really key values or beliefs that Taiwan is really fighting for, the whole idea of protecting democracy and sovereignty.
Understood. Thank you. That's very clear. Thanks for joining us, Valerie Tan from the Mercator Institute for China Studies. Thank you.